You have to suck at something before you can be good at it. Welcome to the River of Suck podcast, episode 3. River of Suck is real talk about struggles with confidence, self-doubt, and becoming the youest you that you can be. I am your host, Andy Reiner. My guest today is Natalie Padilla, a true Rocky Mountain fiddler. Originally from Montana and now a longtime resident of Colorado. Hey, Natalie.
Hey, Andy.
Welcome to the River of Suck.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
You're not new to the swim team.
No, I'm not new to the swim team.
How did you first hear of the River of Suck?
Well, I think I heard of the River of Suck before I knew it was called the River of Suck.
Oh.
But I officially heard about the River of Suck from you, Andy, at your camp.
Officially.
At the Rustic Roots camp. And I very much resonated with it because I thought, wow, I'm in that, and I've been in that, and I'm going to keep being in that, and that's okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
We have a lot of similarities in our musical path. Going way back to when we were kids, I grew up playing with my family in the Reiner family band in Massachusetts, and you grew up in a family of musicians as well. Did you have an official family band?
Oh my gosh, we did.
You did?
And guess what? It was the Padilla family band, consisting
nice.
of me and my sister and my parents.
Okay.
And
what did everyone play?
Well, it depended on the song, but
Right.
There's 3 fiddle players, basses, guitars. I kind of played mandolin, I think a little bit, and a tenor guitar, and singing.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Well, they got you to sing?
Yes.
That's how you became an awesome singer. You've been doing it for a while.
I think so. You know, I stopped singing, though, for basically 4 years straight in college. And then I had to go back to singing and thought, wow, I suck.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But it's a process. I'm
Right.
still working on sucking less.
Well, sucking less. One of the problems that I had growing up in a musical family was that I didn't think the music that we were playing was cool. Did you ever struggle with that?
You know, at a certain point, I absolutely did. I even went so far as to totally claim to my family, I hate bluegrass music. And it totally wasn't true, because my parents were in a band at the time. They would have band practice downstairs, and, you know, I would pretend I didn't like it. But I would actually listen through the doors and think it was pretty cool. But I think that's just being a teenager, wishing that your family was, quote, normal, and that you didn't have to practice before you hung out with your friends and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot going on that made me kind of wish I wasn't in that situation. But
Yeah, the idea of, like, what is even normal in the first place? Like, we both grew up in a family band, so now that I've met a lot of people who've grown up in families like that, it seems like it should have felt more normal than it did. But when I looked around, I did not see other families doing that, and
Right.
I was embarrassed.
I was too. Yeah, your friends, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're, nothing. But really, it's like, we had a gig down at, somewhere playing for, the winter fair or something like that. And my mom also, and looking back, it was so cool. My mom is amazing. She did the Gallatin Valley Junior Fiddlers, and it was a group of, 15 to 20 fiddlers from the ages 6 to 18 or something. And we did gigs all around. It was all very organized, triple fiddles, bows go in the same direction, all that jazz. But at a certain point, about seventh or 8th grade, as a girl, that's not really where you want to be caught in your social circles. I had those moments of maybe wishing I could, be a little bit more like everyone else. But ultimately, it's been one of the best things, I think, for our family, too, now that we're older. I mean, we just got to play some family band stuff on stage, and it was really fun. And, it's like when we come home for Christmas, we play tunes and sing, and it's really fun. And even during that time of my life, it's pretty cool to look over and see your parents and you're playing music together.
Yeah.
And while I was maybe embarrassed to admit that was a cool thing, it did give me the feels in a good way back then too.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like, and I think that's actually one of the biggest parts of the River of Suck is sometimes you don't even know you're in it, and that you can't even see the other side, but
Very
somehow
true.
you keep going, and over the course of years it like works out.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we stuck with it, even if it was hard.
Me
I think
too.
that's the hardest part, right?
Yeah, it is. I can't even remember if I mentioned it, but I did full on quit classical lessons.
Oh.
For a year, and at that point I was like really wanting to do conservatory stuff, like go on, to do a bunch of classes.
How old were you then?
I think I was 13 or so, and I was starting to enter some competitions, playing the really difficult stuff, and I just lost interest, and I thought, like, I do not even like these pieces, they're too hard, I don't sound good on them. And so I was in the River of Suck, but I didn't really realize it, and I just kind of lost interest for a while, and I only played fiddle for like a year, and I finally did go back to classical. But,
Wow.
But that was really interesting to make a big decision, because from, when you're 6 and you're having weekly lessons and orchestra is like your life.
Yeah.
And then just quit cold turkey. Like, nope, I'm just going to play fiddle tunes.
The River of Suck is a mythical river that represents the distance between ourselves today and our future selves. We're on the side with the comfort cave, no risk, no struggles, all things we already know how to do. We can look across to the other side and see mythical future versions of ourselves who can do the things we wish we could do now. The problem is that in between us and the other side is whitewater rapids, rocks, and thought piranhas, the negative thoughts in your head. Today I'd like to add another river term, a hydraulic, where the water passes over an object and creates a dangerous, swirling cycle of spinning water that can cause drowning, or at the very least, some water in your lungs. Point is, it's not so easy to get better at impossible seeming challenges. How do you see the River of Suck in your life, in music or otherwise?
Man, it's there. I'm like always in the River of Suck. But I would say if I could add one more element to all those elements, the
what
piranhas,
else is in the river?
I think fog.
Fog.
Because sometimes fog rises on the river, and you thought so clearly that's where you wanted to go and that's where you wanted to be. And all of a sudden fog settles in, and then all of a sudden you're not quite so sure because maybe things have changed and you're out of the river. And then I personally go through some of these phases of not quite even knowing what my goals are, but I still like really want to go somewhere.
You're just reaching.
Yeah. You know that the shoreline's over there somewhere.
But you can't even see it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of me a lot of the time. I have goals of the way I want to play and the way I want to be, and then sometimes that doesn't seem as important the next day, or something else will catch my interest, and I'll think that's a little more important.
So how do you keep track of all those different things?
It's very difficult. One of the things I do, though, is I like to write. Pencil, paper, and I've done The Artist's Way a couple times, which is a kind of a book written by Julia Cameron, and one of the things in there is what she calls morning pages, and I like to think of it as a brain dump in the morning. You just write whatever comes to your mind, and that gains a lot of clarity for me, and it kind of helps if you get in the same mind space when I sit down. You sit down to write, you're there, and you can start to see patterns over a bunch of throughout time. Like you'll find that for a week straight I mentioned this a lot, and then a week later it's not even doesn't matter, that kind of thing. I think that can help me clear some of the clutter.
Okay, nice. Do you think the River of Suck applies to just music or also to life as you try to navigate this world?
I think it absolutely applies to life, like every part of life. I have this joke with my sister that when, New Year's resolutions, we always used to say, just do better. I want to do better. But that's kind of the River of Suck in like everything you do, right? Mm-hmm. I think, but there's also that balance. You want to do better, but you also don't want to drive yourself insane trying to do all these things better.
So, like, what's an example of an element of your life that's not music?
Oh man, there's like physical activity, sports. I love to ski. I like to run. I love to cook. I'm a very novice drawer. I've just been doing pencils. My sister got me some watercolors for Christmas, and that was interesting to try. But stuff like that, I like to challenge myself in other ways.
Here's a fiddle-specific question from the swim team, this time from Austin in Connecticut. The fiddle seems so needy when it comes to fundamentals. Are there things you do every day to keep this up, or do you hit a point where you've sort of made it a part of you and you can just play? Every time I think I'm there and just spend time learning tunes or transcribing or doing ear training and mental practice, I see my tone and intonation slipping by the wayside.
Man, how that is so true. I do have a little routine that if I even have 10 minutes, 5 minutes, I always start with open strings. And this might sound like
want to demonstrate it in the 1 minute version of this routine?
Yeah, all my students are going to be like, oh my gosh, open strings. But yes, because we do it lots of lessons. Just, I use full bow and try to get the best tone you can.
What's that sound like?
And so on. Do all the strings, do different... quicker bows, bow crossings. And the reason I do this is not only for myself and my bow arm to loosen up those muscles, but your fiddle sounds so much different after 5 minutes of really loud open string playing. Mm-hmm. And
that's funny. I tell my students also to do that.
Yeah. And do you do that yourself, Andy?
Not enough.
Yeah.
I find that when I'm thinking that I don't sound good, that's usually what I need to do to fix it. So, yeah, I always come back to it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting relationship thing with your fiddle. Do you ever feel like you guys are fighting or things are going
like
well?
Sometimes I'll be fighting with this fiddle and I'll pick up the other fiddle and this fiddle will look back at me with like a dirty glare.
Exactly. But it's with any relationship you have.
Yeah.
If you spend some time with it, it's only going to get better. Mm-hmm. And for me, maybe it's the classical background thing, but I really feel like to get the tone and my intonation under control, I have to be doing open strings, and I do lots of little finger patterns to physically warm them up before I do the scales.
So you do finger patterns and scales?
Finger patterns and scales. And I do try to add an element of improv a little bit someday, like just change it up in some way. You can have a rough structure of what you're doing, but doing it different so that your mind is still engaged. You're not just on autopilot. Here's my warm-ups. Right.
It's not repetition. It's sort of practicing the concepts. So could you squeeze that second 5 minutes of your warm-up into a 15-second playing? Yeah.
So something you could do to warm up your fingers, just like I do this one a lot. You could do that on a scale and... So on. I don't know. I've never done that before, but it would work in theory.
if you were to do it.
Yeah, different keys. I also, if it looks like it's going to be inconvenient for the bow, then do it anyways because it's good for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes this is another favorite for an improv one is play double stops the whole time and you can only change one note at a time. And that's the only rule. So it's like, and it can get real weird.
I love doing that. Can we both do that at the same time and see what it sounds like for a second?
Yeah.
1, 2, ready, go. I messed up a note.
How can you mess up a note when it doesn't have a pattern?
Well, because I changed both my notes at the same time.
Oh, okay, fair enough. The one rule. You broke it.
I broke the rule. And I apologized, which means I broke my other rule.
Good rule.
Never apologize for your music or things you did that don't hurt anybody.
That's right.
The whole idea of being sorry for mistakes, I think, is so funny. And so many people are like sorry. Sorry. Bleep. But and so people walking to each other and they're like, oh, sorry. So, of course, one of my things that I started doing was saying pterodactyl for all the moments that I didn't truly need to actually be sorry. Then making sorry more special and using it when I really deserved to need to apologize for something.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Can't stand it when, especially if I'll be teaching a student something and they're learning and they say sorry for not being able to repeat it back. I'm like, what? You're learning. Don't apologize. And with teaching, I don't usually call it the river of suck, but that can be the best thing to try to get across to my students, that what you're feeling right now, first of all, sorry, it's never going to go away, but it's just going to... Well, yes. Well, I hate to break this news to you, student, but it's never going to go away, and that's a good thing. So you have to learn how to use it in your advantage. And so I will often tell students my current issues or rapids that I'm going through, and sometimes they don't believe me, but it's true.
Yeah.
I think of it too as like teaching, you're sort of trying to identify what river of suck your student is in, and you're actually a shepherd through the valley of suck.
Yes, that's a huge one, because I can often, and sometimes they don't believe me, but when I tell my students, like, I'm actually struggling all the time with the exact same thing, just on a different level, they kind of don't believe you. But you really show them, like, no, this is literally what's going through my mind when I'm playing, and that's what you're telling me too. So we can help each other out a little bit too. And you know, you never really, it'd be bad if we ever got out of the river of suck, wouldn't it?
Right,
because then we, there.
Yeah,
I'm perfect.
On the other side, all perfect and stuff. Yeah. Well, then you stop growing, and I think that's the thing about how music is so infinite. You get to the other side and you realize that there's infinite rivers.
Yes.
And you sort of have to pick your battles, because you can't actually learn everything there is to know. It's impossible.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's part of what makes it fun, but it's also frustrating.
Yeah, the river is ultimately a blessing and really fun to be in if you can start to see it that way, but, you know, you're always going to be in one, so whatever you're in, look around and say, you know, how can I make a little bit of headway to the next river?
But do you feel like working with other people on their own river of suck helps you figure out what you're supposed to be doing with your life ever?
Absolutely. All the time when I'm teaching, I'll tell my students something, and then in the back of my head, I'm like, man, if I actually took my own advice.
Yeah, right.
So I think actually teaching these things that I know is good for me. It's like telling someone, hey, eating healthy and exercising 5 days a week is really good for you, but I don't actually do that.
So,
you know,
yeah,
so
if you were to do this, you would get better.
Yeah, so it's that kind of thing. And then, you know, telling my students that is actually a really good incentive to do it myself. And then when I actually start to do those things, and I can kind of give my students success reports of my own. I think it's important for them to know that we're all still, like, you haven't just gotten good and, you know, you're done.
Like, we're all kind of in one little tugboat.
Yes, exactly. And so to help students see that that's not a bad thing, that you're on a journey and you don't want the journey to end, because that'd be boring.
Yeah.
Here at the River of Suck podcast, the biggest question is how to maintain a healthy attitude in the face of impossible obstacles.
Impossible obstacles. Well, first of all, you can't see them as impossible obstacles. They're just like another thing or goals.
Impossible with an asterisk.
Yes. And this is something that I am always trying to do, and this is another comment that someone said recently that stuck with me, and I love her dearly, but she said to me, are you kidding me? You don't think you're serious? You're one of the most serious people I know. And I was immediately really hurt and offended by that, because I was like, what? I think the trick of this is you can't be too serious. And then for someone to say that I'm really serious, dang it. But
was it after a concert?
No, I was in a lesson.
Oh, okay. You were teaching the lesson.
Yeah, so maybe I'm just a very serious teacher. But I do think there's a balance of, you have to take it serious enough, but also you have to let go of so much of that's not in control. And so that might be one way is to, I don't want to say not taking it seriously, but also realizing objectively, does this actually matter or affect, your well-being? Are you going to die if that goes wrong? No. That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think there has to be a healthy balance of some sort of trying and not trying and knowing and letting go and that sort of thing.
You've competed and won many contests. How do you think that's changed the way that you play and think about music?
Well, when I was younger, I didn't, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, you don't really think about what you're doing. You just, someone tells you to go on stage and play those tunes and you do it and it's fine and you're staring off into the distance the whole time. There's definitely pictures of me doing that, playing fiddle and just looking somewhere.
Were you smiling or did you have a...
No, I think I just did the zone out kid.
Zone out kid.
The zone out kid. We all did that.
I think I was the frowning kid. Although I didn't feel like I was frowning, but people told me that I was, and they were like, you should smile more. I'm like, no, I'm an angsty little kid. I don't care.
I got the, you look bored. I still actually get that. Especially in orchestras and stuff. But as a kid, I didn't get nervous at all, didn't think much about it. But when you get to a certain age, you're a little more aware what's going on. Like, oh, there's like people in a different room literally judging me and writing down scores, and that's what determines whether I get that $50 or whatever and trophy. So I got more and more nervous, the older I got, and I don't know. It was a good foundation.
More and more nervous, not less nervous.
Right.
I'm interested in tracking this trajectory of nervousness. Can you track that through your life in terms of competitions?
Yeah, I definitely remember not ever being nervous as a kid. And I think, so there's different divisions. When you get into,
right.
It always seems like a big deal when you get into the junior division. Because that's, you're, 14 to 18-year-olds, something like that. And that's kind of a big age gap. So you kind of know the 18-year-olds are going to win, but you still want to do well. And there's a little bit more at stake, it seems like, than the other divisions.
Because you've now put in more time and investment into your... Well, we didn't think of it as craft at the time, but now we can.
And I don't think this ever crossed my mind at the time, but you kind of start to have a little bit of a reputation, and there are those people out there like, oh, well, she won the blah 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 blah,
Watch out for Natalie Padilla.
No, but you're almost expected to do all right, and that could be some of it, and you're playing more difficult stuff too.
So, do you think your nervousness peaked at like 18?
Oh, I still get nervous all the time. I think I just have a different relationship with the nerves in that if I feel myself getting nervous, first of all, it means that you care, which I think is absolutely true. So that's always a good thing. So it's how can you use the nerves to your advantage?
Thought piranhas.
Yes. Well, but no, how do you turn those thought piranhas into helpful little guys? Because I think when you're just even a little bit nervous, your focus level is way higher.
Yeah.
But you have to, not let those little voices come in as much as possible.
Do you feel like you're kind of, through the course of your life, going through a river of suck of cooking?
Yes. I love recipes, but half the time I don't have what the recipe says, so then I just scrap it all together and look at what's in my fridge and pantry and try to make a cohesive meal. And sometimes I end up with something really delicious, and then there are also those times that it didn't quite work out. I'm always trying to break out of the same flavors. I think you gotta kind of switch up what ingredients you buy. Recently I've been buying some fresh turmeric, which is different. I made some awesome spiced curry lentils the other week, and that was really spicy and awesome. Yes, I love eating.
Yeah.
I love cooking, so.
You don't have a stove, but that has not discouraged you from cooking.
No, you have to get a little more creative. I have a single hot plate and a recently purchased Instant Pot, And between those things, you can make a lot. I also have a wood stove, which I use for usually mostly heating up leftovers. Nothing like leftover French fries, and it makes your whole house smell like French fries if it heats up on the stove. It's pretty great. You just got to get creative. And it makes you, I mean, I'm cooking a lot of beans from dried beans, which I haven't done very much before. And legumes and more lentils. And that stuff's pretty fun to experiment with.
You mentioned that sometimes it doesn't come out the way that you think it will.
Yes.
What then? Do you still eat it?
No, okay, so recently I had made a spicy peanut sauce from a recipe once.
Okay.
And then I was kind of in a hurry, but I wanted that sauce, so I was trying to use my memory and put it all together, and the ratios were not right. It was fine, it was an okay sauce, but like way too much grated garlic. You just add stuff and I don't know. It's like music. You gotta just listen to it a little bit to be able to figure out what it needs. You can't just hastily taste it and then, hope it gets better. But, yeah.
But you haven't ultimately been discouraged because
No.
I think what happens sometimes when people fail at things or they think they failed is they just quit and then they say, well, that's not a thing I can do.
Right.
So I guess what I'm so excited about in this podcast is really talking to people about situations where the failures turned into positive experiences. I mean, now you know to use less garlic. Have you made it again?
No, I haven't, because that was just a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
But I will soon. It was very good. The first time I made it.
Right. You have to be creative to find the right solution. It's not always just staring you in the face.
Right, and you might not always have that ingredient that would be perfect to fix it, so you got to kind of look in your cupboard and start adding stuff. You never know. Cream is often a thing you can add, or bouillon paste and, weird things that you might not quite think of.
Or like in the super bean salad today, I wanted honey, but all the honey was not very liquidy, and we ran out of maple syrup, except for the habanero maple syrup, which I wasn't sure about. It was really spicy, and I saw my cream of coconut. I was like, that's sweet. It worked.
Totally.
Ha!
Yeah. I like to experiment a lot with smoothies in those flavors too, like pushing the limits of like, what weird thing can I add before you can really taste it.
The 1% effect, that it's still worth putting in a tiny bit of something because all the small amounts of ingredients add up to something that's more than the sum of its parts. And I think that probably extends more than just music. I mean, cooking. Wait, are we talking about cooking or music or life? I don't even know anymore.
Well, both. One thing that I think is so important about cooking and music and life is, food is our fuel. It's kind of like how scales are our fuel for playing. You got to have good ingredients to make you feel good. You got to feel good to make music and practice. So
for you, cooking is a big part of your day, and what's gonna make your day successful or not.
Yes, yeah. Like of course, I would love to just put 4 Eggos in a toaster every morning, smothered with butter and maple syrup. But then I'd just be toast by 11 o'clock, and if I ate a big Jimmy John's sub for lunch, then I just wouldn't. Maybe I'm more sensitive than most people, but I like to feel energized and good from what the food I eat.
Yeah.
And I also believe it needs to taste good.
Yeah, none of that bland stuff.
No.
I have to admit, I'm relatively new to this podcast thing. You could say I'm currently swimming the river of suck of podcasting. I'd like to thank all the members of the River of Suck swim team for your support, and I'd also like to thank What's Her Name podcast for being such a positive influence on me and this podcast. I've been listening to What's Her Name a lot as we drive the endless highways of the Mountain West.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Nelson. And I'm Olivia Mickle. We're 2 academic sisters. And we host a podcast called What's Her Name? What's Her Name podcast tells you the stories of fascinating women that you've never heard of. We're unearthing the histories of really interesting women that have slipped through the cracks of our collective history. We add era-appropriate music. We interview really fascinating experts. Everyone from professors to authors to the manager of a brothel museum. We cover it all. So give it a listen. whatshernamepodcast.com.
One of my favorite things about your playing is how you draw from so many different styles of music. Whereas many fiddle players kind of dive deep into just bluegrass, old-time, Swedish, Celtic, you sound awesome and authentic in each of those styles. Perhaps I feel a kinship in this pursuit because it's the same thing I strive for. How did increasing the scope of your focus help you develop your own voice?
With the River of Suck concept, you never know where it's going to go. And so, I kind of did the contest thing. I've always played classical too, starting at a young age. And I still do, and I love that. But at some point, Celtic music was thrown into the picture, and I grew up playing kind of some bluegrass in the family band. Then I played a lot of Celtic music just because that's who the people I was hanging out with, that's what they played. And so I got really into that. And then I got really into old time, mostly because it just kind of showed up. But I also had genuine interest in it's this thing you hear, and I'm like, I could do that, but I had to put a little bit of work into that. And I also think that all those things have shaped my personal playing. Like when I write a tune, I can, if I don't think about it too much and I listen to it later, you can hear, oh, that part kind of sounds Irishy. That's a little old-timey. Oh, there's some bluegrass licks in there too. On some days, I think this is a bad thing and that I'm unfocused. You know how you hold on to those really nice comments people give you over the years? I remember it was like way before I even thought of this ever. So it was a judge at a fiddle contest. And, it's like in between the rounds, he came up to me and he's like, man, great round. And I'm thinking, how'd you know it was me? Like, you're behind a curtain, whatever. I didn't say that. But he just said, like, I can always tell it's you and I like your playing. I remember thinking, how can you always tell it's me? I didn't really think about that. And then I realized it's these other styles kind of creeping into all the other styles. Which, again, sometimes I can think is a bad thing, but I ultimately don't think it's a bad thing. I get the question sometimes, what's your favorite style to play? And I can't really answer that. I mean,
what kind of music does your band play? Oh, we're a music band. We play music in our band.
We play music. We sing sometimes too.
Yeah.
You can generally follow a beat.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of your fiddling and your songs.
Aw, thanks, Andy.
And one of the places I get to hear them is a band called Masontown.
Yes.
What would you tell us about Masontown?
Well, Masontown is a 5-piece, looks like bluegrass band. And we do play some bluegrass, but we try to blend all of our respective styles together a little bit. So we even do a couple funky songs, because there's Bradley Morse, and he's he's got some funk beats in him. And
That's Polaris meowing.
Hi, Polaris.
She's a big
hi?
fan of Masontown.
Yeah. Sometimes we sneak a little bit of some Irish flair in there. I always vote for some old time in there because Sam's a great clawhammer player too. And then original music. It's really rewarding to have a band of amazing musicians play your music and also bring a new tune and see what they do with it and what kind of stuff that we play.
Yeah. Do you have any albums we can buy?
I do. There's our full-length one is called In This Time, and then we have a little EP, which I think is just called EP.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And those have been really fun projects.
Cool. And you've also got a great recent solo album, which is called Paths and Places. I'm wondering if one of the paths is the River of Suck. But it's it's full of songs and fiddle tunes. It sounds amazing. Could you pick a song we could listen to real quick and then get your thoughts on?
Sure. Well, it could be any of them.
For my true love is gone off and left me for the sea. of the sea. Yes, it is your true love. I won't fight it anymore. I can't be on the sea. Goodbye, my dear. I will hold you close and dear. Yes, it is your true love. I won't fight it anymore.
Well, you know, it's interesting. That one also kind of came to me like as I was waking up. I was in Ireland a couple years ago, and I woke up in the middle of the night with that melody and that first line of the song in my head, and I kind of drowsily wrote it, you know, typed it into my notes in my phone, and tried to decipher it later that day when I was sitting on the beach, and I kind of finished writing it. And I also I had noticed a lot of the tunes I was writing in songs up to that point had a lot of minor chords and kind of dark, and I really wanted to write a song that had 0 minor chords. So that's kind of how that came together, and yeah.
One of the important things about writing music that a lot of people forget is that it's actually a process to write a tune, and the first thing that you're writing down on that paper is not a finished, polished, amazing product. You know, people want all their ideas to be good, but sometimes you have to work with them. Would you say with that song that it kind of just fell out of the sky into your brain and was perfect, or did it take any kind of did you have to work on it a little more?
Oh, I definitely worked on it. I mean, just that first part kind of fell into my brain, which I wish that happened more often. It doesn't, but just the da 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 da. Again, I kept hearing other like minor chords in there, and for whatever reason, I had like, I will not put a minor chord in this song. It'll be the one song I have that's just 3 chords. So I kind of had to alter the melody, and there were a few drafts, and then my band Masontown actually kind of helped me, you know, make it come to life. I remember we first played it at a little bluegrass festival in Pueblo, and yeah, I can't say I have the same process for every song, because everything could, you know, sometimes it's the chord progression you think of first, or the words, or this theme. A lot of my tunes I write on banjo, or there's a tune first that I think could have words, and so then you kind of have to make the words fit into the tune. But there's usually quite a bit of editing process in there.
Well, and there's also, you have a song, I believe, about eating pork.
I do, yeah, Piggy Piggy Pie, which will be on, I did record another album. It's not even in mixing yet, so it's still pretty fresh, but that will be on there.
Daryl Anger, who was my fiddle hero when I was 11 years old, and who I now get to play with sometimes in the Daryl Anger in the Furies. You had him on the album, and you're trading licks with him.
Yeah, that was kind of a wild dream, because same with you. I've grown up listening to Daryl, whether I knew it was Daryl or not, but you know, all the old David Grisman stuff and everything he's been on. And Joe, who produced my album, is also in a band with Daryl called Mr. Sun.
That's right.
They're so good. You should check them out if you haven't. And you know, if you're in a band with someone, you're in regular contact. So I just texted him, "Hey, you want a studio gig?" And that's the cool thing that I've learned with music is, you know, never forget to just ask someone. People are usually happy to help out, and you know, especially if you're, I mean, wouldn't that be awesome if someone came to you, "Oh my gosh, I've been listening to you since I was a kid. Will you play on my album?" You'd be like, "Of course I will. Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
You know?
I don't get a sense of competition from you. I get a sense of like, we're in this together. We're fiddle players in Colorado. Like, let's play music together. This is fun. I think I get that sense when I listen to you and Daryl trading licks on the album, which is really fun.
Oh my gosh, it was so fun. You've maybe been in the studio with him before. I don't know. But it's almost exactly how you'd think it would be. You know, listening to Daryl in your headphones and, you know, random yelling in between songs is pretty fun. But I think that's very along the lines of River of Suck. I think we all struggle with enough internal, personal issues when it comes to music, and low self-esteem or trying to get past the other thing. You know, having another person you know is going through that same thing and being able to talk about that is so much more helpful than being competitive. And I don't know, I've never been much of a competitive person. Even when I played sports, like soccer, my coach was always trying to get me to be aggressive. Like I got a yellow card once, and he was so proud of me.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, what is life about if it's not about trying to help each other out and, you know, sharing some feel good moments, which music to me always is, if you can collaborate with fun people and spread that.
Well, that sounds like we should play a fiddle tune together.
Hey. I like fiddle tunes.
Oh, what about the joke on the puppy?
Oh yeah.
When I want to know what's going on with Natalie Padilla, I go to nataliePadillamusic.com.
Yes, that is a good place to go, and my website is updated. It will be updated soon to find dates and such. But
So just open it on your browser window and keep reloading
right.
every 10 seconds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Forever.
And it might update itself eventually. But yes, I did finally sign up for MailChimp, and so I'm gonna put a little sign up on there, and that'll probably be the best way to keep up with like the new album that comes out. I'm gonna do some pre-sales, not through Kickstarter, just good old-fashioned pre-sales.
I'll bet you by the time this podcast comes out, there will be an email list sign up right there.
That's right. This is good incentive.
You can join the River of Suck swim team and gain instant access to bonus content for just $1 a month. For episode 3, this includes extended interviews and outtakes, as well as Polaris meows, MP3s of the music you've been hearing, and the duo jams we've been exploring. Joining the River of Suck swim team at riverofsuck.com also gives you the opportunity to interact, leave comments, ask questions of future guests, and truly help support the creation of this podcast. Thank you, Natalie, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been so great to hear your thoughts on music and life, and now I'm going to go have to make some peanut sauce.
Yes. I highly recommend putting it on some vegetables and rice. It's so good.
But not too much garlic.
Not too much garlic. Nope. Not too much maple syrup either. It's so good to be in the River of Suck.
Thank you.